Nowadays, there aren't many quality representatives of the action genre as there were in the 80s and 90s. Almost all the famous actors took a swing at it back then, but now it's dwindling. Even Dwayne Johnson, who tried his hand at it early in his career, eventually moved on to kids' movies and cartoons because they bring in more money. Nowadays, the genre has been infiltrated by another actor who also tried branching out into other genres. Although he's avoiding cartoons for now, he's found a niche in action films: Jason Statham. Maybe it's because he doesn't need to change much, just a look at his face tells you he's about to beat someone up. He doesn't need to act it out, it's all in his expression. While some might argue that it's not great acting unless you can cry on cue and play emotionally disturbed characters, others believe that many acclaimed actors wouldn't be able to play a Jason Statham movie character as authentically as he does. Action films are often criticized, but they're where many talented actors can't shine. As for Jason, he compares himself to a burger: what you see is what you get. Some might think it's not great, that actors should be able to show vulnerability and play troubled characters convincingly, but others argue that many acclaimed talents wouldn't be able to play a Jason Statham movie character as authentically as he does. But action films are often criticized, as many talented actors can't seem to pull them off convincingly. Now, let's talk about Hollywood's main philosopher, Jason Statham, and his ups and downs. Initially, Jason didn't plan to pursue a career in cinema. He wanted to be a footballer. He even played for his high school team, but he wasn't exceptional. So, he turned to diving, where he had more success and even made it onto the English national team. However, he didn't make it to the Olympics. After retiring from sports, he signed with various modeling agencies and started advertising underwear. His rugged English charm convinced people to buy the underwear he endorsed, but as he aged, he moved on to selling trendy Chinese clothes at flea markets. All these gigs took him over a decade, so by the time he entered the film industry, he was already 31. He was discovered by director Guy Ritchie while selling clothes in a market. Ritchie was impressed with how he left the English public speechless, and he invited him to audition for his film Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. We all know Jason Statham as the action hero capable of single-handedly reducing crime rates in a country, but even he can't fulfill all our content needs for fast cars and daring men. That's why we must closely monitor all the latest releases and series premieres. This love for Guy Ritchie and Jason Statham can be explained by our audience's appreciation for them, something Ritchie seems to be losing these days. Similarly, people love Jason Statham because he looks like an ordinary guy next door, but occasionally, he's ready to throw down. Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels marked the first collaboration between Guy Ritchie and Jason Statham, who remain friends to this day. Statham readily accepted Ritchie's offer, even though the film's budget was around $1.5 million. Part of the funding came from the well-known singer Sting, who received a significant and meaningful role in the film. Despite its modest budget, the film grossed $28 million at the box office, a breakthrough for Statham. He continued to receive offers, among them Snatch, where he starred alongside his friend Vinnie Jones. Although Snatch was only moderately successful, with a gross of $8 million against a budget of $2.5 million, Statham's next film, The Transporter, caught the attention of French producers from Luc Besson's studio. They needed a budget-friendly guy who could fight, and Statham fit the bill perfectly. Statham trained extensively for almost 4 months to prepare for the role. Although initially, the character was scripted as gay, this aspect was later toned down to appeal to a broader audience. Statham's portrayal of the stoic protagonist caught the attention of viewers, and The Transporter became a sleeper hit, grossing $42 million against a budget of $25 million. The film's success, particularly in DVD sales in the US, prompted the studio to reconsider their plans, and a sequel was eventually produced. The sequels were promptly announced. Despite not rushing to assign Jason to other projects, he was being courted for prominent supporting roles in larger Hollywood productions. One of these was Cellular Heist Italian Style, where he appeared in a microscopic role that led to various stories, notably that Michael Mann admired The Transporter and wanted to cast him in his film. Jason didn't refuse. He then returned to Guy Ritchie for Revolver, a hit here but less known in the West. The US version differed significantly, resulting in poor box office performance, only grossing $7 million against a $25 million budget. London was another attempt for Statham to prove his acting range, but no one was interested, except for his return as the Transporter. Statham considers the sequel superior, though they faced challenges with the rating. Despite a successful box office, Statham's career had its lows, notably with In the Name of the King, a dungeon siege tale, which bombed both critically and commercially. Surprisingly, Statham didn't get nominated for a Razzie, showcasing his ability to shine even in bad films. Following these failures, Adrenaline came as a rescue with its modest budget of $12 million, showcasing Statham's authenticity. Its success led to a sequel, but it failed to match its predecessor's performance. Statham's subsequent film, War, was also a flop. However, the bank job did well, earning $65 million against a $20 million budget. Statham's biggest film at the time was Death Race in 2008, though he had to go to jail for a crime he didn't commit in the movie. It took a while for this film to hit the big screens in the early 2000s, and Tom Cruise was initially considered for the lead role. After Tom Cruise turned down all three completely different scripts, the Death Race project stalled for a while. Eventually, it transitioned from Paramount to Universal Studios, as some rights remained with Cruise's production company. He and his business partner Paula Wagner were listed as producers. Originally, the script envisioned a much grander scale film, a direct sequel set in the year 3000 about a global race featuring flying, floating, and invisible cars. However, Universal requested significant changes to reduce the scale drastically, as the estimated budget was at least $150 million. When Jason joined the project, all scenes showing the main character displaying his ability to fight and defeat crowds of enemies were removed from the script, fearing comparisons to the Transporter. Perhaps this was a big mistake. According to Statham, he underwent the most rigorous training of his career for this film, reducing his body fat to 7% over 3 months. He was coached by a specialist who had trained actors for 300. Despite this effort, the film's theatrical version bombed, grossing only $76 million against a $45 million budget. Statham then went on to heal his wounds by returning for the third Transporter film, where the director aimed to turn the character into a mix of John McClane and James Bond. Although Statham expressed dissatisfaction with this film too, he found the idea of a megaton very intriguing. It's surprising that Statham, despite his appearance as someone who can fight at any given moment, is actually quite easygoing. There are no stories of him clashing with directors or upsetting producers and women. This might explain his longevity in the business. Everyone speaks highly of him. The third Transporter film, by the way, did not flop, earning $109 million against a $30 million budget. However, by the late 2000s, as digital media began to take over, studio revenues started to decline. Statham received either $5 or $7 million for the third film, the figures vary. For the fourth, he demanded $11 million, citing potential home media sales. When the studio refused to pay, they decided to reboot the series. Various rumors suggest that Statham didn't want to appear in the fourth film due to his dissatisfaction with the third, but he managed to secure a record fee for himself. However, whether they pay him or not, he still comes out ahead. The actor's breakthrough in the thriller 13 in 2010 marked a turning point in his career. It's not because he found Rosie Huntington-Whiteley; they are still together and unmarried, although there are rumors about taxes. Rosie was actually shooting the third Transformers when Jason found her. Sometimes people think that Shia LaBeouf had more chemistry on screen with Megan Fox. This is understandable. Jason often visited the set and watched Shia. Perhaps LaBeouf suspected something; many of us could too. So, the absence of chemistry can be understood and forgiven. But this year was pivotal for the actor because of his unstoppable projects, which were the most expensive of his career and high budget in general. It didn't seem that way since half went to the actors' salaries, but the film cost $82 million. They wanted to spend $60 million on necessary actors. They refused to work for food, so they had to pay them cash. Stallone was invited to the film since Statham needed a fighter, and Jason fit all the requirements, especially after impressing in Death Race, which was one of the first films. This film could have gathered almost all the big stars, but the stars didn't align quite right. Sly couldn't accept the offer because he was about to go to jail. The Belgian declined due to the role size, as did Jackie Chan. Rumors say they rewrote the Belgian role for a Swede, but that's likely false. Seagal refused because of past conflicts with a producer. Jason, unaware of Lerner's bad reputation, agreed to act for an unknown sum. The Expendables did well, earning $274 million on an $82 million budget. Meanwhile, The Mechanic: Resurrection sank. It emerged due to Lionsgate's distribution system, though it failed, hurting only buyers. The Professional, 2011, faced scandals, and its promotion backfired, earning $57 million against a $70 million budget. Jason tried diversity but failed, even with The Mechanic sequel. Then came Parker, a franchise bid, adapted from Donald Westlake's stories. It grossed $46 million against a $35 million budget, leading to cancelled sequels. The Last Stand almost became another Rambo, but it turned out differently. In 2014, Wild Card bypassed US theaters. Jason's career faced darker days. Wild Card earned $52 million against a $22 million budget in 2014, but by 2015, things were dire. The Expendables 3 struggled, delaying sequels. However, in 2015, Jason landed a role in Spy, a comedic self-parody. The director of Half Baked started as a stuntman and was a big fan of Jason Statham. So, while working on the script, he asked to include a character very similar to Jason's. When Jason himself was approached, he immediately agreed. Spy, where Jason essentially parodied himself, did well, grossing $235 million against a $65 million budget. A sequel was considered for years but faced script and scheduling issues. Hobbs and Shaw performed decently, earning $761 million against a $200 million budget, but expectations were higher. A sequel is planned, but no progress has been made. Jason's career peaked when he received $13 million for Hobbs and Shaw, setting a record for an actor aged 52. His next film, Wrath of Man, was released in 2021 and grossed $104 million against a $40 million budget. Despite challenges, it was considered a success given pandemic-related restrictions. His collaboration with Guy Ritchie, Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, was plagued by delays and ultimately flopped, grossing only $49 million against a $50 million budget. His streak continued with Fast and Furious 10, which underperformed, leading the studio to order budget cuts for the 11th film. The fate of the franchise remains uncertain. The actor's latest project is currently Beekeeper, still in theaters with no final box office numbers yet. However, it had a strong start, grossing $46 million worldwide in its first 6 days of release. The budget for the film is also unclear, with reports suggesting around $40 million, though not confirmed. With such numbers, Beekeeper is expected to perform well by the end of its theatrical run. Jason Statham is currently in need of support due to his age and a string of recent box office disappointments. Many would agree that he is one of the most recognizable actors of our time. While he may not possess the talent of Jack Nicholson or Marlon Brando, his philosophy resonates with the masses, which is significant. Moreover, he has his own distinct genre of films associated with his name, which is not as intimidating as those of Bruce Willis, for example. It will be a sad day for cinema when Jason Statham is no longer able to command the screen with his presence. There are few actors like him left in Hollywood. A plain sandwich may not be extravagant, but it's often more satisfying than many dishes served in elite restaurants. Thanks for your attention, stay tuned.